Good afternoon, everybody. As we approach towards the last and valedictory session of our conference, I would like to invite Professor K.L. Krishna on the stage, Professor Vinish Kathuria to join us on the stage, Professor Nagesh Kumar to be on the stage with us, and Dr. Satyaki Roy. I now request Professor Nagesh Kumar to please take over the session.
Professor Krishna, my friend Vinish, Satyaki, and all the very distinguished participants. We have finally reached the concluding session of three very eventful, very happening kind of days. I can certainly say that it was a very sort of educative and fruitful 3 days that we lived through. I'm sure many of you also feel the same way. And so in this session, we will have a couple of agenda. One is the summary of key takeaways. What did we, what are the sort of highlights of our discussion, which we think are the key takeaways? Of course, this requires a lot of detailed work to, go through all the discussions and summarize them. But in nutshell, what are the few bullet points that we can take away? And then the faculty of ISID will work for a detailed proceedings or a report, and that will be circulated to you. But in the interim, we will have a small summarizing of bullet points of key takeaways by Dr. Satyaki Roy. Then day before in the opening session, I mentioned about our intention to form an extended network of the researchers who work on industrial economics, industrial development, and related matters. So we would have some kind of a open discussion to get some real meat into that and taking it forward. So we will get some direction or guidance from you. And then finally, we will just thank everyone for these 3 fruitful days you have given to us. So this is a very short agenda. And without any further ado, let me invite my colleague, Dr. Satyaki Roy, to share what he thought were the key takeaways. Over to you, Satyaki. 10 minutes? 15. Good.
Thank you, Professor Nagesh Kumar, Professor K.L. Krishna, Professor Vinesh Kathuria, and my dear colleagues, participants, distinguished guests. So we had a 3-day intellectual engagement, which consists of 70 presentations from different parts of the country and also 6 very important policy roundtables. Now, of course, my job is to draw some of the takeaways from this discussion that happened in the 3 days. And it is difficult to make a summary of 70 presentations and this roundtable. So what I will try to do is, and I'm also not capable of doing that. So what I'll try to do is bring out some of the highlights which are important, which would keep in our mind for our future research, and also which would have some policy insights. Now, from the beginning, if you note it down that from the initial presentation made by the director of ISID in the second session, the two major points on which the whole conference was anchored on was, first of all, the importance of manufacturing-led growth. And this was pointed out in several sessions. The manufacturing-led growth is required, particularly in case of India, because India is passing through the phase of potential demographic dividend. So it is not for industry only, but also to create gainful employment for the huge amount of unused labor force in India. But the point is that it cannot be done through services. It was not the question that manufacturing versus services, because we all understand that in today's world, it is also very difficult to disentangle services and manufacturing in many of the respects, because services are embedded within the manufacturing process. But most importantly, it was required because the transition of people from low productivity to high productivity segments in case of India can be done most appropriately through manufacturing. I remember in one of the sessions where Professor Deepak Nayan mentioned the problem of services. And that is that here also we see a kind of a polarization between income and skills. You had very high-end, high-earning, high-tech services. And on the other pole, we have what we call the burgeoning gig economy of low wage and low skill. And since there is a problem of vertical mobility in services, it is through manufacturing only. This graduation in terms of productivity can happen, which can create more indirect and direct employment. The other important point on which the conference was anchored upon was the revival of industrial policy. And I would say that it is a massive shift in terms of policy perspective. It is happening worldwide, that in the past 3 decades, it was an absence of industrial policy, which itself was a policy. It was not something which was accidentally happened, but it was by design, when the major perspective was that you do not require any intervention in terms of strategizing industrial growth. Rather, the market can take care of everything. So just you liberalize and you will get the results. But this has come to a close. This has come to a close worldwide, and it has come to a close in India. We are now talking about industrial strategy, which define goals for the country. Now, we see that in the discussion which came out that there is a rise in the productivity growth in our manufacturing sector. It has happened in services as well. It was in some extent driven by import competition, but more importantly, it has happened because of the change in the resource allocation towards more productive activities, which includes also skill and capital intensive sectors. And due to this shift towards skill and capital intensive sectors, of course, the productivity in the aggregate level has increased, but the flip side of that is a declining share of labor, because the growth of productivity was much higher than the growth of real wages. That increased the gap between productivity and wages, and that led to a decline in labor share, which came very sharply in one of the discussions. Now, the other point is this is related to the question of deficient demand, which is persistent in a country like India, where you have a large number of population. And it is not like Singapore or other small countries where you can depend easily upon exports. So in this kind of a situation where you have a deficient demand that is being reflected through low capacity utilization in many of the industries, and also it is being reflected in terms of declining capital formation in manufacturing sector, which is an important concern. Of course, ICT has increased the productivity in manufacturing. This is an important finding which came from the discussion. And in terms of technology, the most important point which came, of course, we were part of this discussion when Dr. Naushad Fose made this point that in-house industry R&D should be increased by about 8 times. Then only we can reach the desired level. R&D expenditure in Indian industries is very low. And what is also important in one of the papers that comes out that R&D expenditure basically depended upon imported products. So more you import from there, in those industries, we find that the R&D expenditure has increased. So imported industrial goods and a positive association with R&D is understandable. But again, that has led to a kind of import dependence in many of the sectors, particularly a study on capital goods and medical devices. And in many other sectors, we find that import intensity has increased. This is also a concern which need to be addressed. We also are approaching towards adhering Industry 4.0. Now, of course, the preparedness index, in terms of preparedness index, India is at a more or less moderate level. Its preparedness is much higher than many other countries, but the challenges which we'll be facing has also come in the discussion as well as in the papers. One challenge is the decline of repetitive jobs that is going to happen in advanced countries. It is happening, and it is likely to happen in case of India as well. The other point which came in the discussion, particularly in the roundtable, is that Industry 4.0 is going to create a paradigm shift in industrial activities. It is not optimizing with a given production function. Technologies are disruptive, so always it will change the production function, and for that, the kind of production organization that needs to be changed requires more flexibility, agility, and also stronger feedback loops of employees and the employers. The other point in relation to this, that we need to create the required skill set for this kind of industrial development, which came in one of the discussion by Dr. Sudipto Mondle, who says that this skill creation is the most important thing in this phase of industrial development, which he termed as, this can be considered as the captains of industries in today's world. Now, this skill creation in terms of those kind of technologies is required. So this is one of the requirement to prepare ourselves for Industry 4.0. In terms of global integration, 2 different dimensions were critically reviewed by the papers as well as in the discussion. One is the foreign direct investment. Now, there is a relocation of production from advanced economies to developing economies in the recent period, which has attracted a lot of FDI in countries like India, China, and other countries. And in the recent investment report, if you see that the growth of FDI in India is one of the highest. But this is a good news, but at the same time, the relationship between FDI and innovative outputs in terms of patents, we find a positive relationship which came out in one of the papers. But the important point is that there is no evidence of any inter or intra-industry diffusion of technology coming through FDI. So what kind of FDI is coming? Greenfield, brownfield, the quality of FDI, this is much more important when we're talking about FDI. In terms of outward foreign direct investment, in case of India, even today, what comes out from the discussion that it is not driven by the learning by doing kind of motivation, rather it is driven by tax evasion. So most of the FDI is still moving towards tax havens through round tripping and all this. So, so it is not actually creating a learning process through outward foreign direct investment. One of the papers suggests that the termination of the bilateral investment treaties actually led to a decline in outward foreign direct investment in India. On the question of global production network, even in the panel discussions as well as in some of the papers, it has come out that India is having a very low participation in global production network. So there is a potential to integrate India more and more with the global production network. It can begin within the backward linkage itself, where you take the scale advantage. And by integrating with global production network, it has been empirically shown that the labor share in that particular industry increases. It increases innovative capacity of that particular industry. So these are the advantages. But the other point related to this is the participation and performance relationship in regard to global production network is something like an inverted U-shaped curve. So not necessarily that participating in this global production network in the backward linkage will give us benefits for the longer run, because the return to the unit value would tend to decline. And there, some of the very important policy conclusions came out through the discussion. One is that we need to try to position ourselves in the forward linkage, which would give a sustainable growth in terms of global production network and the benefits that we can derive. The other important point is that rather than focusing on goods and services, final goods and services, policies would be much more oriented towards movement of factors. That would help more in terms of garnering the benefits of global production network. The point also which came that we should think about sectoral trade agreements rather than FTAs. STAs are basically FTAs between countries on a particular industry in reference to automobiles and electronics, where it is being shown that if we have STAs between companies located in different parts of the world, but producing automobile components and automobile products, that kind of an agreement would be much more fruitful and meaningful rather than FTAs. The other important conclusion that came out from the discussion related to global production network is, of course, that FDI policy should be oriented towards a particular goal, and that goal should be repositioning India into the higher value-added activities. So it is not about being happy about the amount of FDI which is coming in the form of just as a source of fund, but we could tweak policies so that FDI can be used to position India in the higher value-added activities. In today's world, we cannot think of industrialization without sustainable growth, and these issues came in the discussion. Of course, our growth of productivity is also linked with the growth of carbon emissions that has increased. But the good news is that the emission intensity in different industries has declined. Now, most of the emission is basically 70% originate from energy-related industries. So the government is basically trying to substitute fossil fuel to electric vehicles and so on. But there the question of availability of critical raw materials is important, but the supply-demand mismatch becomes important. But the other important point which came in regard to the sustainability and green industrialization theme is that there are a lot of policy inconsistencies regarding innovation of different sectors, particularly sectors like solar photovoltaic cells and the green hydrogen value chain. It has been argued that European Union and China, they are the leaders in terms of patents and also the projects on green hydrogen in the world. And if India wants to be one of the major players in this sector, what is required is a policy, a consistent policy. There are demand gaps. There are issues related to infrastructure. There are issues related to cost of capital, and these need to be addressed. And this cannot be, so the question was that in certain technologies, it cannot be an incremental gain over time. We have to leapfrog to reach the frontier or push the frontier in certain sectors to become the leaders. And there the question of scientific technology innovation policy and public investment towards technology becomes important. Now, the last 2 points which I want to mention is related to MSMEs. The discussion was basically in the papers which came out that it's a perennial problem of access to credit. There was the question of differential access to credit on the basis of caste, which exists in India, but that seems to be declining. There is the question that this margin money subsidy, which was given to small enterprises, it worked, but it had a very limited effect. During the period of COVID, what we see a decline in productivity across sectors in MSMEs, and the government policies actually didn't work to enhance the productivity of these sectors. There are problems of awareness of the government schemes existing. This is one thing. And the other thing is that we do not have enough data. We do not have a kind of an academy industry relationship, which exists to some bit in case of large enterprises, but that is also required in MSMEs. So the focus was in the linkage in these kind of sectors. And also, when we're talking about the linkage between small, both horizontal and vertical, the issue that came up in the panel discussion is to focus on soft linkages, which is often not easily measurable, but we need to have policies which are focusing on these soft linkages, which becomes important in MSME sector. There is a positive relationship which is found between digitalization and export intensity of farms. But the other point is in terms of e-commerce, the paper suggests that there is a positive relationship between e-commerce and overall manufacturing sales. But if you consider only MSMEs, then it is positive but not very significant. So there is possibility of enhancing the use of e-commerce to increase sales of MSMEs. There is a regional concentration of industries in case of India, which is of course very high. But in most of the cases in these regional concentration is group-based, it is not industry-based, and the concentration is declining. Also, studies suggest that in the recent period, the laggard states, in terms of total factor productivity of manufacturing, they have improved quite a bit, and it was related to the growth of physical infrastructure in that particular states. The social and financial infrastructure are not very significant in developing the total factor productivity of manufacturing in the laggard states. The advanced states didn't perform much in the recent period. So these, I found that the major points that we can consider to think a little bit more, take up for our research as well. And also these have very important policy implications, which we need to be which can be considered. And please excuse me if I missed out very important points which came out in this rich discussion that happened in the past 3 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Satyaki, for very ably summing up the key highlights. Of course, in 3 days, we have discussed quite a lot of work of very serious nature. So it's very hard to summarize it in just 15 minutes, which you have done a great job at that. And of course, as I said earlier, we will put up a more detailed, report in due course. So with that, one agenda that we had set out to achieve in this session, we have accomplished. Now, the other is, the formation of an extended network in the form of an association. So we have some ideas we thought of just discussing and Professor Krishna is here to give guidance. And also I have invited our good friend Vinish, who has recently assumed directorship of Institute for Development Studies in Jaipur, but for a very long time in IIT Bombay. I think we need to form an association which could be registered as a society. And the model I have in mind, which I have always felt very happy about, is this Indian Society of Labor Economics, which is anchored by the Institute for Human Development, ISD. And they hold annual conferences in collaboration with ISD, and this model seems to have been working very well because there is a secretarial support provided by the institute, which is a well-functioning institute. So we thought if you would agree that we set up an association anchored by ISID, because ISID is perhaps the only institute in the country focused or totally devoted to industrial development. So is there an agreement on this broadly? I see node from both sides. So very well done. And then the other issue would be, what do we call it? So suggestion was that Industrial Economics Research Association or uh, Industrial Development Research Association, because Indian industrial economics may be slightly limiting with some other discipline, people also contribute to it. And Vinish, I know, is an engineer. So you would, I presume, support industrial development. Yeah, I also felt that economics may be too limiting. So development is broader word. So if you all agree, Industrial Development Research Association, IDRA, is a good name. Is that? Yeah, good. So we will register the society. So we were actually looking at the statute. I mean, there is a Societies Act and there is a format given that these are all parameters that you need to define in when you register a society. So they say registered office of the society will be where. So obviously ISID, now you have already agreed to. Aims and objectives. So we will make a preamble that this is a society, being registered to promote the study of industrial development in India and other developing countries if necessary, and to provide a forum for cooperation and networking among researchers engaged in research on industrial development. Something along these lines. We can do some editing of that as we go along. And to undertake, promote, facilitate research and teaching in the areas of industrial development and allied subjects, to disseminate information, knowledge, and the results of research on all matters within the scope of objectives through the publications, seminars, conferences, workshops, and lectures, etc. And publish journals, proceedings of research, books, reports, etc. So broadly that way. And journal certainly is on our mind, that we should have a specialized journal on industrial economics. If you have some suggestions about the name of the journal, that also we can discuss. Maybe we can put it already in the objectives. So Journal of Industrial Development or something like that. Sounds good? Good. Okay, so legal status would be registered as a society, and membership will be open to individuals and institutions interested in industrial economics and issues related to industrial development and other allied research areas. It shall be open to teachers, researchers, students, any other categories you have in mind.
Before that, what will be the frequency of the journal?
Yeah, that maybe once if society has been formed and we call a meeting, they can decide the frequency, but minimum 2 times a year. Yeah, minimum 2 times a year. Yeah.
I think society, when you go for registration,
Yes, sir.
it should have a minimum of 7 members.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah.
That is how the
Yeah,
CD
exactly.
was
Yeah.
established.
Yeah. Minimum 7. In fact, all of the people present here are members of to begin with, and then we can add more, because many of the participants of the conference have left because they had to catch the flight. So please register your attendance so that we can list you as the first set of members. And then, as usual, association should have categories of members: life members, ordinary members, institutional members, student members. So we can But I want to propose that Professor Krishna is, made the patron of the society for life. So-
I don't want any role really.
No, but just
Because I'm-
blessing,
I'm
blessing.
here to really.
Sir, your
I want
presence,
an all,
moral support. Yeah,
yeah.
so that's why patron.
Mhm.
So Professor Krishna being the patron, we will all feel very much blessed that this will be a good association. And we can send a circular around those who want to be life members or ordinary members, and some of your institutions. I mean, I know that many of the IITs are represented in this crowd, GIDR, CDS, so IIMs, and so some of the institutions which have some interest in industrial development would hopefully want to be institutional members. So eligibility for membership. I don't know if we should define some criteria. Vinish, you have any suggestions? Or anybody interested in industrial development?
That would be too broad.
Yeah.
Too broad.
Yeah. Only interest doesn't matter.
As a guest, I would like to make two observations about.
Please, please, please. Yes. Yes.
I think I would like to congratulate and compliment the ISID community for organizing this conference so successfully, I think so purposefully. And I remember a similar conference was held in Delhi School of Economics in 2000 December on the eve of my retirement. And a volume was brought out with Suresh Tendulkar, Dev Kusumdas, late Dev Kusumdas, K. Narayanan, and Arup Mitra. Four of them edited that volume. It contains many articles on, I think, the quantitative approach to industrial economics. So broadly, that is the title of the book. Of course, Nagesh has a priest, Aradhana has so many. I think about 200 people came for that conference. I think the book contained about 20 chapters. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that something, but I think the only point I'm making is the ISID community, I think, very successfully organized this conference. I am greatly impressed by the commitment and dedication of the community members. And I'm grateful someone like Vinish also could come to the conference, and because I'm an admirer of his writings, because he wrote a very good piece on Tamil Nadu economy in some 7-8 years ago, on a book edited by Vajjanathan and Nataraj on development alternatives. That is that kind of a work, I think, is very, very useful. Yeah.
Share it.
Yeah. I will not say anything more. Only I extend my best wishes for the society, and of course I belong to the generation of Professor S.K. Goyal. So therefore, I'm in some sense. I think I reflect his opinions and so on. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for your kind words, and we are all delighted, and I'm sure our founder, Professor Goel, wherever he is in the heavens, he would be very pleased that we are taking his legacy forward and keeping up the work on industrial development up, and all of these young people have been brought together. I'm sure he would be very pleased with this and the formation of the Society on Industrial Development and journal. I know he was someone who really enjoyed all such activities. So I'm really confident that he would be blessing us, and as you are blessing us. So I think all others are very typical kind of
But
issues.
just one more point. I
Yes,
think,
yes,
of
yes.
relevance.
Yes, sir.
Recently, the India Claims team published a paper in the Indian Economic Review in July 2022, where we start the analyze on the basis of analysis for the 1980 onwards,
Yeah.
the sectors to be emphasized are agriculture, manufacturing, and market services. I think so. Although we really found market services, manufacturing is an important sector to be promoted. Yeah, that is.
Very good. Yes, I think, sir, that message came out in your paper in EPW as well, which we had discussed some time back. Professor Goldar gave a seminar. Yeah.
It was authored by me and Professor
Yes,
Goldar
correct,
and,
correct. Yeah,
Narayanan, not Narayanan, India Claims team.
yeah, yeah.
I think
Abdul and all
Yeah,
others.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we,
based on
yes,
internal rate of
correct,
return in
correct,
the,
yes, yeah. And we discussed that in one of the ISID seminars, and Professor Goldar was with us. And I think Abdul also
Yeah,
was.
he was
Yeah,
also
Abdul was also there.
Abdul really calculate internal rates. of
Yes,
return.
yes, yes, yeah, yeah. So we have been looking at a lot of work which has been done under your leadership and guidance under CLAMS project, which has been very helpful, and the database has been
I
used.
think
Also.
one more point of interest
Yes, sir.
in this connection is,
Yeah.
see, myself and Professor Meenakshi of Delhi School of Economics
Mhm.
wrote a paper on agricultural productivity
Right.
because for a volume in honor of Professor C.R. Rao on his 100th
Right,
birthday, it appeared in the Journal of Quantitative Economics special issue.
Yes, yes.
I think there we found that agriculture needs to be promoted.
Mhm.
And subsequently, we found literature saying that agriculture along with industry, that is the basis of our EPW paper.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. So we will look at that paper as well, this Journal of Quantitative Economics. So the other issues in the registration of society are more kind of procedural, that organs of the association will be general body, executive committee, office bearers, and composition and functioning of the general body. So there are some, drafts we will make, and we will circulate among, some of the senior people who participated in this conference. I have personally talked to them, and they are all very supportive of. So Professor Viramani, for instance, he had to leave yesterday, but he said that he will be very happy to be part of it. Professor Nagaraj, who just left, he has to catch a plane. He also said very happy to be part of this. So we will make a core team of some, Professor Krishna said 7, but maybe 10 or 12, 15 people with the geographical representation and all different institutes getting, represented. Professor Narayanan has been very supportive of this idea. He could not make it this time, but he is very much on board. Professor Siddharthan also could not make it to the conference, but I had invited him. So many people who for one reason or the other could not join, but are very much supportive of this idea. So they will also be consulted. And so we will make a draft, circulate to, this committee of senior people, and apply for registration. And then next year, when such a similar conference takes place, that would be the first annual general body of the association as well. So all of you can look forward to joining and presenting your papers again and take it forward. And then I would also be talking to some of your senior colleagues and professors about this journal, what shape it takes, and lining up a publisher. We have Rootledge is publishing ISID books. We have a long-term commitment. Maybe we will sound them out if they are interested, or some other publishers. So next year when we meet for the next conference of industrial transformation of India, we will have much more sort of homework done and share with you. So I think if there are any other suggestions, anyone, any of the younger colleagues have, please do share. Anyone? Yes, please. Go. Yes, go ahead. Can you share the mic? Industry bodies. Yeah, good idea.
The work that we do, how useful they find it, or what they would like
Yes,
focus on.
right. No, it's a very good suggestion. Industry bodies. We work on industry and we don't consult them that. Okay, yeah, okay. Tell me that. Yes. Okay, yeah. Good.
Data generating bodies also will be.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good idea. Yeah. CSO or
Yes,
ASI, yeah.
Communication between.
Yes. Yes. In fact, Professor Anand, who was here all the 3 days in the morning, he mentioned that CSO used to organize some conference of industrial economists, but it has been stopped.
Publication.
Also, industrial statistics, yeah. Yeah, so we will talk to them. He was telling me that I should go and meet with the chief statistician of India and brief him about what we are trying to do. So I will do that. Yes, yes, they stopped. So maybe we can mobilize them to be part of this. If they were doing earlier, they could be interested. So that's a good idea. Any other such suggestions? So if none, I think we take it as that you all support this and we will take it forward, keep you posted, and we meet next year. So that brings me to some kind of a vote of thanks, which is again a very big task, because in 3 days we have covered lot of ground, lot of speakers and resource persons. So if I were to look at the program, I think one should begin by thanking Dr. Arvind Virmani for joining us for the inaugural session, delivering the inaugural address, and very wide-ranging. Our own chairman, Mr. S.K. Mishra, Professor Deepak Nair, who chaired the first plenary and added a lot of his insights. He has a lot of insights on industrial development, and I think he's Professor Krishna and Professor Nair. They have a kind of sustained interest in industrial development all their life. So Professor Nair has a lot of insights like Professor Krishna. And Mr. Ajay Shankar, Dr. Sudipto Mundal, Ms. Rupa Datta from government. So we had then sessions chaired by Professor Pulin Nayak, Professor Anand, Professor Padmini Swaminathan, and a number of discussants in each session. Then Dr. Nitin Desai chaired the third plenary on sustainable and green industrialization. Also very insightful because he is someone who is father. I know because I worked in UN how much respect he commands in the United Nations even till date. He was the first Under Secretary General of Sustainable Development, and in the UN discussion on sustainable development, all started with him. Brundtland Commission, 1972, he was the secretary of that. So he drafted the report. And so whole discussion and field has developed with his insights. So I hold him in very high regards because I have known his contribution, globally recognized contribution. And so when I approached him to chair this session, he said, gladly, Nagesh, take me down on the program. So Arunabha Ghosh, our neighbor, partner here, and also doing a lot of work on sustainable development agenda. Shikhar Jain, Lavish Bhandari, Pranav Kumar, Thomas Poge joining from Yale. So then other three panels, Sachin Chaturvedi, Professor Krishna himself, Amit Chauvin Ray, and among the discussants, Professor Suma Atreya, Dr. Krishna Kumar, and Professor Nityananda. Then another plenary on innovation in Industry 4.0, Rajat Kathuria, Parminderjeet Singh, Vinish, of course, is sitting here, Shraddha Shrikant from UNIDO, Sujit Bhattacharya. So we have had number of very senior experts joining us. Professor Khan Masood Ahmed, Professor Ravi Srivastava, Professor B.N. Goldar, then Surajit Majumdar, Jain Jose Thomas, Somesh Mathur, and Jakaria Siddiqui. Then Professor Veeramani in the other round table, Sumanta Chaudhary, Satpathy, Ajay Srivastava, Aradhana Agarwal. And then today we had Professor Lakhvinder Singh, Professor Manmohan Agarwal, Dr. Aparna Sahani. And this morning we had a very brilliant lecture by Naushad Forbes, and then followed by this MSMEs roundtable addressed by Professor Bala Subramania, Professor Keshav Das, Professor Nagaraj, Professor Radhika Kapoor, and Mr. Mukesh Gulati. And then Professor Atul Sood chaired one session, and Dr. Smita Francis, Dr. Parmeshwaran, and yeah. So, and then, of course, entire ISID faculty in one way or the other has been contributing in all different management tasks and besides the substantive agenda. So you have all contributed to different sessions. We're also managing this, review process of there were 220 submissions. And so the committee of ISID went through every one of them very carefully and selected these 70 which were presented here in these 3 days. So I was saying in the beginning that all of you whose papers were selected need to be congratulated. And, so you have achieved something. And I'm sure this is, will sort of encourage you to do even more work and better, more rigorous studies in future. So we will stay in touch with all of you. And I want to also thank entire ISID faculty and staff and all those who served on different committees. Well, maybe I invite Santosh, who has been also deeply involved in this, along with Satyaki as a co-convener of this committee, to list all these very significant contributions of individuals in ISID faculty and staff. Santosh, you want to come? Because I know for sure I won't be able to remember all the names. So you can do that job.
Thank you, sir. Good morning to all. On behalf of, good evening to all. I'm so sorry. On behalf of ISID and Conference Organizing Committee, I take this opportunity to thank each and everyone for making this conference a success. To begin with, I extend my warm gratitude to all our distinguished speakers in the plenaries, and I hope it has been of immense value to our conference participants, especially young scholars. My sincere thanks to session chairs and discussions. Many thanks to all paper presenters, especially young scholars who have joined us from various parts of the country. Some have traveled long distances like from CDS, from Trichy, some Karnataka. So, from different parts of the country to be part of this conference. I would like to thank ISID faculty and staff for their hard work in making the conference a success. So we actually formed different committees to organize this conference, and I would like to thank members of different committees. To begin with, thanks to the members of the accommodation committee led by Dr. Rijesh. So they are the one who have actually provided accommodation and organize your logistic. So made you sort of stay here comfortable. So I'll thank other members of the committee, which include Mr. Y.P. Yadav, Dr. Sanjay, Dr. Ajit, Mr. Dinesh Kumar, Mr. Sandeep Pokhriyal, and Mr. Bahadur Singh Kapola. And thanks to members of the registration committee who is provided the logistic during the conference. Many thanks to Professor Seema who coordinated the committee. And other members include Dr. Swati, Dr. Surya, Dr. Rama, Dr. Akhilesh, Ms. Usha Joshi, and Mr. Umesh Singh. Now comes to food committee. Hopefully food has been good. I mean, reasonably good. So many thanks to Rama for taking the pain of organizing food. I mean, looking after the food during this conference. The other members of the food committee include Dr. Sailendra, Dr. Akhilesh, Mr. Jeet Singh, Mr. Sandeep Pokhriyal, Mr. Dinesh Kumar, Mr. Sunil Agrawal, and Mr. Sumit Sharma. Now come to IT committee. Thanks to Dr. Rezi, Dr. Rijesh, Mr. Bhupesh Garg, Mr. Dhananjay Kumar, Mr. Rakesh Gupta, Mr. Bharat Chandar, and Mr. Binod Dondial. Now comes stage coordination committee, the committee which coordinated the plenaries. So special thanks to Dr. Anjali, who coordinated this committee. Thanks to Dr. Beena, Dr. Swati, Dr. Sangeeta, Dr. Sineya, Dr. Ajit, Mr. Amitav De, Mr. Amit, and Mr. Bahadur Singh. Now, technical sessions committee, the committee which actually coordinated the technical sessions. Special thanks to Dr. Sailendra who coordinated the sessions. And the committee includes Dr. Satyaki, Dr. Rezi, Dr. Anjali, Dr. Isa, Dr. Beena, Dr. Sanjay, Dr. Sangeeta. Also, I would like to thank all session coordinators for conducting the sessions smoothly. Now, our last committee, which is the outreach committee. So I thank Dr. Rezi, Dr. Anjali, Dr. Sangeeta, and Dr. Amitav De. So here I would like to mention, I would like to thank Mr. Dhananjay and Mr. Rakesh, who has been actually working even during holidays to make this event successful, and who has always responded to the needs. Even they worked, I mean, over last 10 days there, even if during holidays they came to the institute and worked. So thanks to them. Now I think the members of the conference program committee, the committee which actually, from the advertisement till the conclusion of the program, the conference, the committee which has looked into your papers, coordinated the whole sort of conference. I thank Dr. Satyaki, Dr. Reji, Dr. Anjali, Dr. Rijesh, and Dr. Rama. So this is the conference coordination committee. Now, of course. So now I think my sincere thanks to Professor Nagesh Kumar, who actually conceptualized the idea of having a conference and the whole format. And he was he took a lead actually in organizing this conference, and he's been a constant source of inspiration for all the committees and behind the conference. And at the end, we acknowledge and thank ICSR for extending financial support. So their role is crucial. So now at the end, I extend warm gratitude to all participants for their active engagement during the conference. Thank you all, but there are few announcements to make. I request all participants to assemble outside for a group picture. And then the technical paper presenters may please collect their certificates from the registration desk. Thank you. Thank you.
So, Santosh, thank you for listing everyone except yourself. So you forgot only one person. So, so we give him a very big round. So with that, like any good thing, it comes to an end. Thank you very much for joining us and giving us 3 very productive, very fruitful days. Without you all participating so enthusiastically, it would not be a success. So it became a success because all of you came from your institutions and joined us and contributed to the richness of the presentations and discussions. So a big round of applause for yourself, and travel back and safe and stay in touch. We will be in touch with you.